here's why Tate, the outrage YouTuber who essentially is known for his takes about just about everything, shows why it was probably not the best choice in his case. So oftentimes Tate is brought up in a bunch of controversies, and recently he was charged with several crimes in Romania alongside the UK. Now he's standing trial currently for these crimes, and we'll see how he's sentenced. But anyone from a global operator perspective could have seen this coming, as Romania has power politics that outweigh the fact that, of course, he had money. And he thought that corruption would save him. The issue with corruption is it's a quick fix, and it doesn't make you any more better off than you were 2 months ago. Instead, it delays. And this is something that Tate didn't understand. He thought he was invincible in Romania, and he thought that he could get away with whatever he was doing. But of course, he is now standing trial. And something that not a lot of people realize is that even with places like the Parliament building being massive, the wealth gap and the general quality of life is not something that Romanians actually take pride in, and it's not something that people try to go out of their way to make known. Now, of course, there is luxury culture, there is people flexing money, flexing cars here, and that's part of why it worked so well for Tate initially, because all he was doing was normal Romanian bravado. But, of course, it ended up being way too much for the Romanians, and especially as more and more became disillusioned with Tate in the West, the East started to really look into what Tate was and how Tate acted. And especially in a culture like Romania, where they're hyper-aware that just 30 years ago, they were extremely poor, and they were really not in the best positions globally. Romanians understood fundamentally that, of course, the bravado Tate put on was often just a way for him to extract. And while Romanians do indeed have extractive politics and extractive lifestyles generally, what isn't so appreciated is the extraction happening in broad daylight. There is a bit of difference, right, between what Tate was doing and what politicians do. And while both have insane bravado, both are extremely corrupt, and both admit to these things, there's a difference inherently between, obviously, what's going on the ground in Romania and what's going on, obviously, in Tate's video and Tate's videos. The Romanian people don't appreciate lacking discretion. They don't appreciate people being so public that their life is broadcast every waking hour. And they appreciate family life, realistically, which they didn't see Tate as a family person. Now, Romania does have one of the highest acceptances of cheating in Eastern Europe, and they do have one of the highest understandings of human psychology, I would say, in Eastern Europe. However, invariably, what that ends up being is not something that's beneficial to Tate, but something that they can cut through the noise. And, of course, with all of this happening, when a lot of Romanians were disillusioned with the EU, it was moving towards the EU before Tate got arrested, but of course it's kind of backing out again from the EU as quality of life is strenuous right now and they are not growing as quickly. But during this time, Tate may have had a different fare, But because he was so bravado immediately, and because he was so public, that is what ended up being his downfall, as Romanian society very much values their privacy. And Romania does not have a large tourist culture. It doesn't have a large expat culture. I'm here in Bucharest, and in Bucharest you kind of get a lot of Romanians, but not a lot of other folks. Now, there are increasing amounts of expats and people from, obviously, the US and EU, but it's still very small relative to other locations, even in the region. And of course, if you look at, for example, Sofia, which is not known for having large amounts of expats, or you look at places outside of Romania, you obviously get a lot more of a large population of expats. But in Romania, there isn't a lot of foreigners. And this leads to people being hypercritical of everything that a foreigner does. Now, this isn't actually a bad thing, as there is some level of grace, but people understand the second that someone goes off about these things that they don't really understand Romania and Romanian politics. And so, of course, Tate was someone that very much was a victim of his own bravado and his own lack of understanding of the world and globalization more broadly, as he often bragged that he has several dozen driver's licenses, which obviously didn't help him. And another thing is the fact that, of course, he thought that the US would save him. This just shows that realistically, when there's problems with someone at that level, there's no government that can save you. And additionally, the only way you're going to get away is to essentially be everywhere and nowhere all at once, which inherently means having a bunch of passports, living in a bunch of places, and realistically, that's not something you want to have to deal with. And so if you want to not have the same things happen and not deal with the same level of heat as Tate's, I will link down below a Calendly to get a 15-minute call one-on-one with me, and we can talk about your strategy going forward. Now, I don't really care to work with people like Tate, so if you are like Tate, perhaps don't. But if you liked the video, feel free to like it. If you really liked the video, feel free to share it. If you are looking for a way to support me, feel free to subscribe. If you're looking for new videos, they're on my channel down below. And of course, as always, this has been the Traveling Report, signing off.